When you're scrolling around on Netflix, sometimes you come across these movies that you're like, "Oh man, there's a lot of great actors in this," And sometimes it turns out to be quite the surprise. You're like, "Hey, I'd never even heard of this." And then sometimes it's not so good. So which is Windfall? Let's talk about it. Written by Justin Lader and Andrew Kevin Walker, Windfall tells the story of a man who breaks into a tech billionaire's empty vacation home, but things go sideways when the arrogant mogul and his wife arrive for a last-minute getaway. The movie stars Jason Segel, Lily Collins, and Jesse Plemons. I found an article about this movie talking about how Jason Segel came up with this idea and brought it to his friends Andrew Kevin Walker, Justin Lader, and Charlie McDowell, the director of the movie. He got them all on a Zoom call and they just basically talked it out and said, "Hey, do you think this is worth making a movie?" It was kind of an interesting story. The premise really sounded interesting to me when I was reading through it. I was like, "Hey, this kind of sounds like sort of one of those one location type of movies, like old school, like Hitchcock, like Rope." And that's kind of what I was thinking. And in fact, it even starts out sort of like an old, almost Hitchcockian kind of movie where the score is very old school, very I don't know, I just really liked it. I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty cool. And the acting, like across the board, is pretty awesome. Jason Segel has always been one of those actors that even though he's made movies that I don't like, I've always liked him. So I was kind of interested. I was like, this sounds like an interesting role for him to play this kind of part. It was kind of neat, and I think he did a great job. Lily Collins, I've never really seen in anything before, but she was great, and almost that, again, sort of old school beauty kind of thing going on, which I thought was kind of interesting. And Jesse Plemons is Jesse Plemons. Look, this guy continues to surprise me. Like, I remember thinking, I don't understand what the big deal is with this guy, but this part shows that Jesse Plemons is someone that can play almost anything and can do it very convincingly. Technically, I think this movie is pretty close to perfect. I mean, it looks gorgeous. The house, the surrounding, I guess, land, I don't know, the complex, I guess, that this house sits on. There's so many different cool ways to film, what is like a single location sort of movie. There's a lot of ways to make it look interesting and make the time pass a little easier. But that's the problem with the movie is the story. It drags, and for a 90-minute runtime, that's really, like, that's something to say. I will say that hashtag no spoilers here, but look, there are cool little clues along the way, even in the dialogue, that point the way that this movie might go. And the problem with that is if you've seen movies before, you kind of know where this is headed. And you know that, oh, well, that's going to come up later. And it's just one of those things where, in a way, it sort of telegraphs the ending in a way that's not great. I was with the story pretty well. I mean, I'm a patient sort of person, especially when I'm watching a movie. It's like I'm looking at all sorts of things, not just the story, but the acting and the way things are shot and all that, because it's something I love. I appreciate good storytelling and even the technical aspects behind it. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, look, I can feel the length a little bit, but it's not bad. It's not bad. All the way up until the third act, where things sort of, they play out in I'll just say, a frustrating way, because it almost makes you feel like you wasted your time. There are tons of movies out there that do this sort of thing, where it kind of makes you feel like, oh, well, the ending didn't really play out the way that I thought it should, and all that kind of stuff. But you can still, like, you don't say that the movie's terrible or anything. For me, the way that this movie played out, again, it just makes you feel like what are we even doing here? And I think that's what's so frustrating about it, is that it's, you've got three actors that are doing, I mean, fantastic work. It looks beautiful. Everything works, but they just didn't stick the story part of it. The way that it ends is very like, just like, okay, that happened. There are even some talks, I guess, some thoughts on Class that are I thought were really like, hey, we may have something here. You guys are talking about this stuff and it's actually kind of interesting. And what are you going to say about it? And they don't really go back to it. It just sort of ends, and you're like, but what about? Okay, all right, credits are rolling now. It's more frustrating when you see the potential and then that potential is never even reached. And I don't know if it was cut because of time. They just like, you know what, let's just make this a lean thing. But it like I said, it felt long in places. It's just unfortunate because I like everybody involved and it just didn't hit for me at all. Like I said, it kind of made me feel like I wasted my time, and that's not a good thing. So I'm going to give this one a 2.5 out of 4 stars. 2.5 for all the acting and the technical aspect, but everything else, it just didn't get there. So I'm sort of curious. I mean, were any of you? I almost want to say suckered into watching it, but did any of you give Windfall a chance, and what did you think of it? Let me know down below, and we'll talk about it, because that's fun. I like doing that. So thank you all so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.